began to float up and away from my body. And my brain seemed to be held in the grip of a giant
Happy New Year! This is Draught For Upside. I am Brewery Mark. With me, as always, is Danger Cole.
You know what, Mark? I hope you can always say that, sir.
I plan to. You are not allowed to abandon me.
I do what I can, but the beer and bacon consumption, might cut those years short.
Hey, and with us today we have Chris Emrick, our resident NBA expert, and joining us today is Adam White, our PGA expert. How's it going, Adam?
Fantastic, fellas. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.
Chris, did you survive your long travels that we left you on last week?
Yeah, it went pretty smoothly. It feels like it was just yesterday we were doing the pod because I got back in at around 2-3 in the morning, and I haven't done much. So I left right after the pod, and now I'm back right here. So
I love it, man. Yeah, I had it pretty easy. I got all the children's and everything at the house, so I make a simple rule. And you want to do Christmas, New Year's, all that stuff, you come to me. So, I got to do a little setup, got to do a little cleanup, but no travel, stayed in my pajamas. It was fantastic.
That's always the best.
Yeah, love it.
I was kind of a bachelor over the holiday. The wife worked the whole time, so she gets some time and a half on the holiday. So sat, watched me some Winter Classic, some bowl games. It was a good weekend.
Yeah, the Big Ten is not showing up well with these bowls.
Do they ever?
No, this is a true story.
I mean, last year they won every bowl game but the Michigan game, which was the only one I cared about. So I remember that for sure.
That was my favorite part.
Yeah, that was probably the best season ever for the Big Ten and bowl games.
I love it. Now the Michigan State, it's just I've definitely liked Lewerke. I mean, since he took over, I just don't like him. The guy can't read a defense. He can't. If the route's not there, it's just over. And it just seems like the guy can't ever decide whether he wants to throw the ball away or take a sack, and he just makes too many mental errors in between the time that you need to make those decisions. It just was not fun to watch that game.
No, that was a boring game.
It was
7-6.
What was that? The 7-6? Yeah, 7-6. It was absolutely terrible. All right. Well, we're going to talk about the PGA, Adam, a little bit later in the show. Are you excited that the season's starting back up?
I couldn't be any more excited. I kind of had Christmas and New Year's pass without all that much excitement, but I am fired up and ready to roll for PGA, man. Golf season's here.
Well, I dabbled in it over the last couple of years on DFS just because, 4-day sweat's been entertaining. But I'm really excited to learn from the beginning of the season this year and soak in what you have to tell us. And I pay attention quite a bit during the season, and this will just make me kind of double down and get back at it. So I'm very excited. I don't know. Mark, you going to play some golf with me too, buddy?
Oh, hell yeah. I'll be playing every week. I love it. And I'm glad Adam's on board because I'm not good at it.
Right. I mean, I could read the same articles out there that everybody else can read. That hasn't proven to win me any money, I'll tell you that. So Adam, I already doubled my money on PGA this year listening to Adam on a couple of the off-season kind of tournaments that were going on. And speaking of that, Mark, when he gets a chance, we'll be posting Adam's article for the tournament that starts tomorrow. Is it tomorrow, Adam?
It is. Yeah, it's a little later than normal because they're in Hawaii, so I think it's a late morning start. It's a limited field as well, so not quite as much urgency to get on it like first thing tomorrow morning. But
Right on.
Definitely want to start forming those lineups tonight.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we'll get to that after about the halfway point, and we'll get deep into that. We're going to have a special guest today as well, Doug Boyle from the Dugout, the brand new show starting at 10 a.m. on Saturdays. Is going to join us, talk a little bit of baseball. I like to play quite a bit of baseball, but my brain just finished with football, and I have not started with baseball yet. So we'll just kind of let Doug talk about what he's going to do on the show, introduce himself to everybody over here at the Lenny Melnick FantasySports.com, and getting ready to launch this new Legends Sport Network. We're real excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. This show, of course, the I'mABeerHound.com is our sponsor, so we'll call it the I'mABeerHound.com guest line. How's that, Mark?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
So that'll be some fun. But first thing we're going to do here is kind of finish up the seasonal football, fantasy football, and talk about that real quick. I know we do more DFS here, but I'm a seasonal guy. I made all 6 playoffs in the 6 leagues I played. I finished 3 second places, 2 third places, and a 5th place. So it was slightly disappointing, but 3 second places was good. I made all my money back and then some, so that was fantastic. But I really thought I had a shot at a couple championships this week.
So who ended up winning our league?
Ray was way behind, and I was hoping to catch him today and talk to him about that. And I think that your brother finished it off.
Yeah. Well, good for me, I guess.
All right.
Lisa stays in the family. Sorry, Ray.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. This is really, I don't have a whole lot of final thoughts on the season other than, it really proved to be a handcuff year. It really proved to be important to have the handcuffs to your superstar running backs, didn't it?
Yeah, I think it was probably the biggest year ever for that. It seemed like so many backup running backs came out of the woodwork to become RB1s throughout the season.
Yeah, they absolutely thrived. So I mean, it was a very, very fun season. It was very, very different. And what I didn't like is because a couple of these leagues I was in went to 17. I'm shocked that I made it as far as I did, to be honest, because I didn't have, from the beginning, I had no Patrick Mahomes, I had no Gurley, and near the end there, basically Derrick Henry and C.J. Anderson won a lot of people some money out of nowhere. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and I think it also shows that no matter how you look at the NFL and how much of a passing league it is now, running back is still super important to these teams. If you look at all the teams who made the playoffs, they all had a decent running game.
Yeah, it's the scoring is at an all-time high still. It's still an offensive game. But what I really noticed this year was absolutely those workhorse running backs have really made kind of a comeback with Saquon Barkley and Zeke Elliott. All these guys. The first half of the year, Kamara was just unstoppable. Gurley, of course, and you're just seeing kind of a little bit movement back to the bell cow, which I like. I hope that continues. It probably won't, but it was fun to see. And what a difference the two halves were. I mean, the first half it was all offense. And this last 3-4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks leading into the final here to the playoffs, defensive have been absolutely dominant. And I'm having a hard time getting off my Bears versus Ravens Super Bowl.
That would be one boring Super Bowl.
Well, and I think what you guys are mentioning with the running backs, the key to all of those running backs that you're talking about is their ability to actually work into the passing game as well. You're not seeing the guys that are just strictly running backs dominating. It's the guys that have that versatility, your Melvin Gordon, your Alvin Kamara, your Ezekiel Elliott, who became a huge role in that offense in the passing game. And I think it's the exact reason that they've been so successful is their ability to integrate them or integrate him into that attack. And it's made Dak more efficient, made their entire offense completely different. And I think that's the same with just about everybody. I mean, even Chicago, while they have Jordan Howard, they have Tariq Cohen. So, I think that's the key takeaway there is that, you still have to have the running game, but you have to have the running game that is versatile and multifaceted.
Absolutely. I'm looking at, I was actually pulling up Zeke Elliott while you were talking about him. And the first couple of years there, I mean, he did have some suspension shortened time last year, but he only had 38 and 39 targets his first 2 years. And then this year, 95 targets.
Yeah, it just adds a whole different dimension. And We love it for fantasy too, because it comes down to some of these running backs probably won't win you a championship in the NFL, but they'll certainly win you a championship in fantasy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you're starting to really see that just because the guy can catch the ball in the backfield doesn't mean he's your best option. So you're seeing these big guys like Elliott, Gurley, Barkley being able to participate in these passing games because just work on it, right? Work on it. Add it to your game. You're professionals. Get it done because you're the most dangerous person on that field, and the ball needs to be in your hand. So it's been refreshing seeing a little bit of return to that.
Well, that the first down, completion to a running back is like one of the most efficient plays. You're going to pick up 4, 5, 6 yards. Makes the rest of it a lot easier as opposed to just continually running the ball, on 1st and 10 into a stack box and running it again on 2nd and 10 to try and be on target there. And you see the teams that have the ability to change and grow and understand some of these different analytics that have been shown to work, and those are the teams that are in the playoffs. A lot of the guys that have a adversity to embracing some of those things are the guys that are looking for jobs right now, which it just boggles my mind how many people are looking at Adam Gase after what he did in Miami and Mike McCarthy and some of these guys that they just really weren't good head coaches, but they're getting a lot of buzz. Whereas, I think the number one guy heck, if he doesn't get a head coaching job, hopefully we can get him in Detroit as the offensive coordinator, would be Todd Monken. What he did with that Tampa Bay offense. Oh, my gosh. He would be fantastic in Detroit.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how the coaching styles change as you see some of this older generation phased out and getting more analytical. But, I mean, it would have been nice. I'm a Vikings fan. I'm a 49ers fan first, but they had no real shot this year. So I followed the Vikings more this year, and watching Zimmer, he's a hard-nosed, old-school coach, and I like him, and he's a solid coach, and he seems to have his players well in control. But man, that team needed a spark. So I can't wait to see what they bring in next year too.
Hopefully, some offensive linemen, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not a Cousins fan. He's a Spartan, and the Spartans suck. And so I'm not the biggest Cousins fan. I do think he's that Alex Smith. He's the guy that was 10, 11, 12th best quarterback, top 15 quarterback. Nothing special. But if he's got time, he can get it done. But he's another one of those quarterbacks that can't really read the defense. He's got to have those routes. Those routes have got to be there, and he's got to have a little time. But Minnesota's pretty good on both sides of the ball. Offense and defense, they just really need that offensive line. So if I was running the team, it'd be 100% offensive line going into the draft.
Hey, so we're Draught For Upside. We're sponsored by I'm a Beer Hound, and we're on the Legend Sports Network. How did everybody do in DFS for Week 17? I always find those to be very interesting.
Somebody's got some music jammed in the background.
That would be me.
There you go, Ed. So bored with our football talk. Too excited for your golf. You got to listen to the jams, huh?
It's actually the girls next door to my office.
All right. I like it. Yeah, Tony Sincata is in the draft room right now. I used to listen to Tony on the Roto Experts in the morning, and he's a comedian, funny guy. I enjoy him. And he was in there talking offense, not the issue in Minnesota, agree. But that offensive line did need some work. Cousins needs more time. And they did take a little step backwards defensively, but they're still not a bad defense. But yeah, absolutely, Tony. They were dominant last year, is what he's saying. Definitely. So, anyways, let's get into the playoffs going on, shall we?
Let's do it.
Mark, pick a game. Any game.
Oh.
Start with Colts and Texans, or?
Sounds good to me.
Let's just go in order, right?
Yeah, we can do that for sure. So we got the Colts and Texans coming up. They've got a 48.5 over-under, and Houston is currently favored by 1.5. It's an interesting game. This is one I think Houston has the ability to completely dominate this game, but I can't count Andrew Luck out.
Yeah, I'm totally torn on this game. I love Andrew Luck, but I think Houston can win in a shootout. Not that this is going to be a shootout, but it's in Houston. I tend to take the home team in these situations, especially with a margin this close. I mean, 1.5 is nothing. Complete coin
they're
toss.
basically kind of like in Indianapolis with that spread, is what they're kind of saying here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing I worry about Indianapolis is health of the receivers, and them being able to be on their game. But Houston really has the ability to absolutely dominate this game if their defense can come out strong and stay strong.
What do you guys think the highest owned stack will be in that game? I think it's got to be Luck to Hilton, assuming he's healthy, right?
I think actually I think Hopkins is probably going to be the most played player in this game.
Yeah, I just look at the way that Houston's pass defense has struggled late, especially against Philly in Week 16. They're pretty susceptible to the deep ball. I think the Luck to Hilton stack will be pretty viable, in my opinion.
That was just the magic of Nick Foles.
He won me a championship, so I can't complain. But
yeah, it's an interesting game. This is the one of the ones I don't have a clear winner in my head. I think I like Houston. I think I'm going to go with Houston on this. I think I'm going to go with this to go over. I don't think either one of the defenses is that good. I think it could very well start our playoffs off with a shootout.
I think this game is going to be pretty closely contested. I think one of the things that you can do if you're looking to bet the game is kind of just bet whoever goes down first, whoever scores a touchdown, try and get an in-game bet and get kind of a difference there because it's a 1-point spread. A lot of places have it at the same place. So it's not a game where you can necessarily look at it and say that there's a definitive better team between the two. I tend to lean towards the Colts. My concern with Houston is, of course, I don't believe in their running game. While I love Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins, they're kind of short on other weapons. With Kiki Kute, he's been questionable. He's been banged up. Who knows how healthy he'll be able to be if he's in there. Leaving your second best weapon as DeAndre Carter, who, while he's good, certainly is not a number 2 wide receiver right now. So you should be able to double up on Hopkins, kind of limit him to some extent. The Colts defense has been pretty good with a couple hiccups. So it's one of those things where I see the Colts winning this game, and I think the Colts are a team that can actually take it all the way and win the whole thing if they get hot. So for me, it's the Colts probably by 3. Medium scoring game, not necessarily something that I want to get a ton of exposure to.
I think the problem for Houston is exactly what you said. They haven't been able to run the ball. So if they can stop the run without stacking the box on Houston, then you can double team Hopkins. They don't have a whole lot of other weapons they can really pick you apart with, unless you're talking about Watson running the ball.
All right, so let's get your picks. Chris, you said Colts by 3. They going over or under the 48.5?
I'll go under.
Adam, what you got?
What was it, over under?
Over under 48.5, and who wins by how much? You don't have to give me a score.
I'll actually take the under, and I will go Indy by 7.
I'm saying Houston by 7, and I'm taking the over. I'm going to buck the trend as I so normally do. Mark, what do you got?
I'm going to take the Colts by 3 and take the over.
Tony Sinscata here in the chat room says he thinks the best fantasy option is Watson, who may throw 40 times and probably rush for 50 yards. Yeah, I mean, it's very possible. Absolutely. I like the quarterback playing both sides.
I mean, I think one of the important things is that it really depends on, if is Watson going to be a good play? It's just going to be relative to what you think he's going to be owned the rest of the way in terms of the quarterbacks. I mean, the wide receivers, I mean, I think Hopkins is going to be in 50% of lineups. And he's one of the few guys, especially on the Saturday slate, that really can blow open and put up a huge score. Will he do that? I don't know, but you don't have a lot of options, moving into the other game. So you have to look at it from that standpoint. The quarterback, I think you just got to find the right leverage position personally.
Back to the chat room here. We have a guest in the chat room who says Indy's defense was top 4. DVOA ranked 3 this year versus 2 last year. They got killed by Rams, but outside that, they were dominant defense. The perception isn't that, but the stats back it up.
For some reason, that's actually me.
Is that you?
I guess Melanie. No, I was not talking
You're
about
Melanie. Hey.
Hey, I don't know how to change it, but
hey.
no, I was talking. That was in reference to the Minnesota comment.
Oh, the Minnesota conversation.
The Minnesota defense was just as dominant this year as it was last year.
Mm-hmm.
The entire problem was Kirk Cousins' inability to pass the ball because of the pressure that was applied on him.
Gotcha.
It wasn't the defense. Sometimes it could be the play calling, but that was response to.
Sure. Well, Melanie, you got to quit smoking the cigarettes. You got to take it down a notch here. Your voice is getting rough. So, anyways, man. So Tony Sincata agrees with Adam. Says Luck Hilton will be the chalk. So I tend to agree because I think Houston has the best ability to put up numbers at home. I think Indy's going to have to shoot it out. So I'm probably on the Luck side for having to throw the ball more. But yeah, that's just me. I'm always contrarian when we pick these things, so it's all good.
Contrarian's not necessarily a bad thing, especially in short slates.
That's right. So, all right, let's move on to the next game. So the 8:15 game on Saturday is Seattle at Dallas. I will start off with thinking that this is a Seattle game. I think the defenses are going to move the teams along in these playoffs. I think Seattle's been pretty solid. I like them better at home. I do like them better at home. But I think that they are playing really good ball right now, and they can do some time control. I don't know if they'll be able to stop Zeke completely and also be able to cover Cooper. This could be another game that goes over Vegas's projection, which is 43 with a 1.5 favor by Dallas.
Yeah, another tough game for me. I'm leaning towards Dallas because they're home. And their defense is actually ranked higher than Seattle. But given that, Chris Carson's been on fire lately. Russell Wilson, he does his thing. He gets his points. He gets his yards. The factor will be, can Seattle stop Zeke?
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, Dallas technically has had better stats, but Seattle, I just feel like they're in the groove right now, and that is a dangerous team when they're in playoff mode. That just dangerous, and with Chris Carson just absolutely crushing out there, I have a hard time going against them. I do like them better at home, but I I think they have the complete capability of just dominating the ball here.
Chris?
Yeah, so, I've listened to some other people's takes on this, and I think the consensus is that the numbers are pretty good, the spread's right, but a lot of people seem to be favoring the Seahawks, and I get all of that. And so I can certainly see that as being one of the most likely scenarios here. However, for our purposes, when we're looking at these short slates, whether we're doing the 2 games or 4 games, we really need to find a place and take a stand and differentiate ourselves and find a scenario that isn't outlandish, but is something that people aren't on. And so I'm going with a Dallas blowout here. That's not necessarily where I would bet. I would want to put the under, but for the purposes of building a lineup, I want to go ahead with Dallas, a Dak, Zeke, Cooper stack, maybe even throw some Gallup in there, the defense, and just assume that we're going to get a lot of points out of the Cowboys, because I think that is the consensus lowest probability from what I'm hearing people say. And so I think that's going to be the lowest owned. I think Elliott will be the highest owned running back on the Saturday slate. But I think when you go ahead and stack it up with Dak, Cooper, the defense, or Gallup, or somebody else from that team, I think you can really differentiate yourself in some GPPs and hopefully take it down.
You don't like Jarwin for 3 more touchdowns?
No, I don't think Jarwin's going to score 3 more touchdowns.
It is funny, We were talking in the chat room that we actually picked him out of the lineup when we were putting our picks in last week, and none of us decided to pull the trigger.
Well, because I actually put him in a lineup the week prior. I built a lineup with I think it was the Cardinals defense and Jarwin, and I stacked up some really expensive guys, and he did nothing. So that was fresh in my mind, and that type of recency bias doesn't necessarily always get to me, but when it comes to low price, low probability guys like Jarwin, it tends to fit.
Right, that's fun. No, I get what you're saying. Absolutely, I see it. I'm looking at these teams and I'm looking at the momentum Seattle's been building, and it just feels overly familiar. And that I hate the team, but I just can't pick against them. I got to go Seattle this time, which is funny because the last time we disagreed about Dallas did end up blowing out the team. So we'll see what happens.
Adam, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a tough game to call. I think Dallas's run defense has been struggling down the stretch, so I think that's one area that Seattle's probably going to look to just pound away and play ball control. So my only concern thinking this game might go over is that both teams want to control the clock, run the ball, and kind of bleed you out that way. So it'd be tough for me to see betting the over confidently. I don't mind Chris's idea of differentiating a little bit and actually going with the Cowboys with a blowout, because then you got some guys that might be lower owned than they should be because a lot of the public is on Seattle. So I think it's going to be a close game. You're looking for a pick on either side.
Yep, give me your pick.
I'll take Dallas by a field goal, and if I had to take it, I'd take the under.
All right, I'm taking Seattle by 3 and the under. Mark?
I'm taking Dallas by 1 and the over.
Christopher?
I'm going to go with Dallas, the over, and they're going to win by 10.
Ooh, he likes it. I am just the contrarian man. Just the contrarian man today. That's okay. I'm okay with that. That doesn't hurt my feelings. Yeah, I mean, you think you get a game out of Baldwin? Do you think he's healthy enough to ball this game? I mean, you think he steps it up for the playoffs?
I don't. I have no confidence in Baldwin whatsoever. I like Tyler Lockett, but I think Dallas can take him out. Yeah, I don't. Baldwin even last week he just does not look good.
Well, no, I mean, if I'm thinking that this is going to be a high-scoring game, Dallas is going to get away from it. Definitely you want to go with Doug Baldwin. Over the last 3 games, 6 targets, 12 targets, 5 targets. Didn't do a lot against the Cardinals, but if you're going to attack the air against Dallas, they do have good outside corners. They've been good against 1s and 2s. So Baldwin running most of his routes in the slot, I think it lines up good for him. I don't have a problem with Tyler Lockett either. It's just Baldwin's going to get a little bit more of the volume between the two and have a little bit of a better matchup. But I think that you're already contrarian enough if you're stacking the Cowboys and expecting a blowout and a shootout on that side of it, that you can go a little bit more chalky on the Baldwin side over the Lockett. But I expect them both to have pretty similar ownership, to be quite honest.
Yeah, this is a big spot for me. I think I'm going to have a lot of exposure to Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you can stack up the Cowboys and decide to go Wilson over Dak and still put Zeke and Cooper and go with Baldwin if you think that Wilson's going to outscore it, and then maybe you go with the defense and hope for a defensive touchdown or something to that effect. So, I'm not against that the same kind of concept and build. I just think that this game will be the least popular of the two outside of Elliott, and so you can do some funny things with it. If we're talking the 2-game slates, we're talking the 4-game slates, then I think you don't have to get as cute, and I definitely think that this will be the lowest owned of the 4.
Yeah, even in the 4-game slate, I think I'm taking Wilson. I just like his ability, and if they're going to get blown out like you think that they might, he might have just some beautiful garbage time and some nice rushing yards too.
And the one thing that might scare people off of Wilson is this game against Arizona where he got sacked a lot. And usually that's where you're going to see some of the situations where Seattle is having problems when the offensive line is giving up pressure. the difference in the pressure that Arizona can produce versus that of Dallas is pretty significant. Dallas is kind of middle of the pack when it comes to those things, where Arizona was top of the league. Not the best, but in the top percentails. So I don't expect him to be under pressure in the same regard that he was here or in Week 17. So that bodes well for him. Again, 9 times out of 10, I'm probably telling you that the Seahawks win this game, but for the purposes of what I'm looking for and how I'm trying to profit off of it, I'm going to go with Dallas and try and be a little different, because it just doesn't seem to be the consensus amongst anybody in the industry that Dallas is going to win this game, let alone win it big.
All right, moving on to Sunday, shall we? Any other final thoughts before we move to Sunday?
Well, hey, we didn't talk about what we're drinking.
Well, I'm drinking nothing because I'm trying to just hold dinner down. So there's that.
Oh, man.
Oh, what are you drinking, Chris?
Well, I don't have any beer in the house, but I picked up some barrel honey flavored rum from Dogfish Head while I was out in Delaware. So I'm drinking some of that just straight. It's a nice sweet rum, nice easy finish, easy drinking. Just would go well in a mixed drink as well, but I'm just drinking it straight with some, on the rocks.
I dig it. I was up at Ocean City, Maryland last fall, and we were getting up, and it was pouring all day long, and we ended up staying in the hotel room the very last day we were there. Just the entire day, it just was absolutely disastrous weather, and I didn't realize until we left the next day on the way home, when I saw the sign to the Delaware area, and I looked it up real quick, that we were about 18 minutes from Dogfish Head when we had we chased this restaurant off the island, and realized if we would just kept going about 20 minutes, we would have been able to go to Dogfish Head Brewery, and that would have been just absolutely delightful. So.
Yeah, it's a good place. I like Ocean City. Don't ever go to Ocean City Brewing.
No.
Probably one of the worst breweries I've ever been to. They wouldn't even let me take sample. I was like, hey, I don't know how this beer tastes. I'd like to sample it. No, we don't do that. I'm like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Hey.
No, we didn't do much brewery hopping. We had all the kids with us, but I did some local research and found some nice Maryland beer in one of the stores, and had a key lime lager from one of the places. It was fantastic. Tony's asking me what I had for dinner that was worth holding down. Well, my wife makes the most amazing salmon cakes, and even though I wasn't feeling great, I had to try to eat them up because I just love them. So,
hey Adam, are you there? You're on mute, so you have to take yourself off mute.
We don't want to hear him anyways. Fine.
Well, we know that he had a growler that was difficult to obtain, and I don't mean if it was difficult to obtain in terms of rarity. It was just hidden really well in his car, from what he was telling us earlier, and he couldn't find it. So, he put a lot of work into it. So I'd like to know what it is.
There he is.
Yeah.
It's actually a little bit of both. So it's a Detroit IPA that's only sold at the Detroit Founders Brewery. It's a 6% hop forward IPA, very, very crisp and refreshing. It was also buried in the backseat of my car under numerous other things, but it was worth the effort in trying to dig it out of there. So that's what I'm sipping on. Just picked up a couple of growlers last week, one for a friend of mine and one for my own enjoyment. It is quite delicious and only available at that location right by the Masonic Temple in Detroit.
Yeah, I still haven't been down there. I'm ashamed to be in the craft beer industry in Michigan and not been to their new tap room.
Sounds like a group podcast trip is in order.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good idea. All right, moving on to Sunday's games. We are going to talk about the LA Chargers going to Baltimore. I can't say enough how much I love Baltimore's play heading into this playoffs, guys. I'm excited to watch this rematch. We talked about this on a captain slate before, and I was all over the Chargers, and I watched that game, and I just was blown away by how well Baltimore game planned that game, and I think I'm going to see that again.
Yeah, the biggest thing I don't like about this game is the Chargers traveling to Baltimore. So Baltimore is able to stop the Chargers in San Diego. How's San Diego going to play against them in Baltimore? So I'm kind of on the same wavelength as you. I think Baltimore can squeeze this out. Now, the one positive thing about the Chargers is they just saw Baltimore So it's fresh in their memories. They have the tape. They could figure that defense out, and the Chargers by far have a superior offense to Baltimore's. It's Baltimore's defense that keeps them in the game.
Did I say San Diego, David? I'm sorry if I did. I still can't get that out of my head.
Oh, I probably just did too.
Oh, did you? One of us did?
Yeah.
So one of our brewers at the brewery is from San Diego, and she had a Bolts tattoo on her arm, and she is getting it covered up because of the move to LA.
Well, this game comes in as the Baltimore having being a 2.5-point favorite at home. 68% of the bets are coming in on the Chargers, though. 63% are coming on the over of the 41.5. So, the big thing that makes it difficult for me to like anybody on the Chargers is just the ball control type of offense that Baltimore does have, and it limits the opponent's opportunities to do a whole lot of anything on offense. So, one guy that I do like, he didn't play in the last game, and this is regardless of any other type of injury designation, as long as he is healthy and he does play. I really like Austin Eckler in this game. I don't know if Melvin Gordon is healthy or how hurt he is or how healthy he is, because he hurt his foot at the end of the last game on top of the knee. He's going to play, but I'd imagine that if Eckler can get out there, we're going to see a good amount of him in there, and just at a huge discount. So I really do like Eckler. I like him more if Gordon's out, but I don't think that's it.
Yeah, that's a question mark for me too, is how what percentage Gordon is going to be at. Baltimore's defense just really stacks up very nicely to face the Chargers. They just do, and I think we're going to see another repeat. I don't know. The under, I think, is still probably possible. Depends on what all's going on that day. I'm kind of in favor of Baltimore here, probably by that 3 points that they're favored by, and probably sneaking just under that 41.5. So that's my pick there. Baltimore D is just legit.
Yeah, they are, but I think the Chargers defense is pretty stout as well. They just saw them. There's more tape on Lamar Jackson. I like the Chargers. Phillip Rivers has been here. He's been here before, and he doesn't want to go out in the first round. I think the pick that I want, just looking at it, is, we just saw that game. I mean, it was a close game, though, until right at the end. I just think the Chargers eke this one out, and I'm going to take the over and the Chargers by 3.
Are you going over?
Yeah, I'm not going a heck of a lot over. It's pretty close. It's not something that I would put a bet in, but I think maybe like a 26-20 type game.
I like this, buddy. We have completely opposite picks in 3 out of 3 games. I enjoy this. We're gonna see what's up. Adam, how you feeling about this game?
I actually like San Diego in this game too. I think Rivers is on a mission. I think they'll get up a little bit early, put some pressure on Jackson to throw the ball out of necessity for really the first time since he's taken over as starter from Flacco. So I don't have confidence that he'll be able to put that team on his shoulders via the air. So I think if San Diego can get a lead early, I think it's possible we could double stack Gordon and Eckler in that game, because they might be riding those guys in the second half. And I don't know. I think I'm going to go with the Chargers and the over as well. And I think I'm just not confident in a rookie quarterback being able to win a playoff game against a vet and a savvy team like San Diego.
What are they going to win by?
I will say Chargers by 4 and the over.
Charger by 4 and the over. Marcus.
All right, so like I said, the only thing I don't like is the travel from the West Coast to the East Coast. Other than that, I really like the Chargers in this game, and I agree with everybody else's analysis. I don't trust the rookie quarterback. Baltimore's offense is not that good. The recency of them playing the Chargers, I think, helps the Chargers. I'm going to take the Chargers by 10, and I'm going to take the over.
Yeah, see, my only reason why I like Baltimore here is I think even if the Chargers are able to come out with a lead, I think that Baltimore defense is just going to wear them down by the second half. I just like them. So we shall see. I am contrarian for all 3 games so far. So we'll just see what the hell happens, right?
That's
Okay.
right.
Well,
Moving on.
Where are you at on this next game? I kind of have a feeling based off of what you said earlier that you're leaning towards Chicago here, huh?
I'm telling you, man, the playoffs are about the defense, brother. The playoffs are about the defense, and I think that the last couple of weeks of the season has really been leading up to that. So, yeah, I mean, is it going to be a surprise that I say I'm going to take Chicago? I'm going to take Chicago by 3, and I'm going to take the under. Because I think they're going to stop the Philly offense. I think Foles' magic can only go so far, my friend.
I don't know. I'm in love with the Nick Foles magic here. My biggest thing is Trubinsky does not look good. He still looks hurt. Allen Robinson's out. Now Jordan Howard's getting more carries and looking a lot better. So I don't know. I don't like the Bears offense at all.
Yeah, but I think that the Philly can make enough mistakes that the defense can win that game for them. I don't think the offense has to do anything but do their best not to turn the ball over. I like Philly. They're all right. They're a decent team. I honestly think they're the weakest team on this entire playoff slate.
Hey, I tend to agree with you. I like Chicago. I don't think it's always about the defense in the playoffs. If you look back historically over the last 3 years, I think there's almost an even split of overs and unders achieved. I think every Super Bowl pretty much goes over. So what you find in these earlier games, though, is you do get some, first-timers in. You got Lamar Jackson, who's going to be a rookie quarterback. These Chicago guys don't really have a lot of exposure to it. So I think that's when the defense really does kick in, is when the offense is kind of stuttering to begin with. So, I agree with your assessment there. I like Chicago. There's not a lot of fantasy guys that I like on either of these teams. I'm going to take a step out and say Tariq Cohen's probably the highest scoring guy in this particular game, because if Trubisky is hurt, you got to figure out ways to produce some offense, and it's just not going to be handing the ball off to Jordan Howard when the strength of the Eagles defense is going to be their front four and their run defense. They don't really have much of a secondary. So, if you can get some guys out in space and kind of change the dynamic, I think Caleb Gabriel offers an interesting GPP play, but really Tariq Cohen, again, not a lot to look at here. I think there's something like a 17 to 12 type game with the Bears pulling it out.
Yeah, I agree. I think Philly's the weak spot in the playoffs, and I think going into Soldier Field in January is absolutely a horrible place to try to play a football game and win. I think Chicago's just got this under control.
I don't know, but they're giving up 6 points if you're betting the spread. So I'm not sure that I like them for 6 points, but I do like Chicago to win the game.
I do not. I like Chicago by 3. I like them not to cover. I would bet on Philly with the points. Mark, what do you think of this game?
I will take Philly with the points. But I'm actually going to take Philly winning by 3 and take the under.
Adam, what you got for me?
I'm actually picking the only double-digit victory of the wild card weekend. I'm taking the Bears by 10 or 11. I think their defense is going to be too much for Philly to handle. I think Philly's been doing it with smoke and mirrors a little bit here the last few weeks. And I think Foles' run of glory comes to an end here. I think he's going to be on his back a lot on Sunday. I got to go with the Bears, and I would actually take the over. I think there's going to be a lot of garbage time for Philly legs. I think the Bears are up by 2-3 possessions in the second half.
David Steinman in the chat room here says he thinks that line is going to come down and the Chicago side will get more favorable. But right now at -6, I have a hard time taking Chicago because I do think it'll be a close game, maybe with some garbage time touchdowns to get it closer. It could be one of those games where Philly's down by 2 possessions with 3 minutes left and scrambles and gets the first one and then falls short. Chris, give me your official prediction, sir.
17-12 Bears.
We agreed on a game?
Yeah, we sure did.
I like it. That's weird.
I took
know.
Philly
That's
just so I
strange.
could be 4 for 4 opposite of you.
Right? I bet you did. That sounds like you, Mark. Absolutely. So we're going to talk baseball, and we're going to get deep into PGA. I haven't even looked at the DFS pricings for any of these games yet. So I don't know. You guys want to go through some DraftKings stuff, or you want to attack that after PGA?
No, let's go through DraftKings.
All right. I like it. All right. I'm going to pull up my DraftKings. I'm going to go to the NFL. I'm going to select the classic match. I'm going to take the 4-game featured slate. And we're going to pop open a team and check it out. I love this chat room action, man. We are just having some fun here. If you're listening to this on demand and you're not going to LennyMelnickFantasySports.com and entering our live chat, you are absolutely screwing up your life, and I don't know what's wrong with you. This has been a lot of fun getting this thing ready for launch. I can't wait to hear the big news that Lenny keeps talking about. But we're on Wednesdays, so we can cover PGA. It's going to be our probably our lead while before baseball starts up. We do have guys that talk NBA and hockey when it's relevant. But the lineup's great. We got Lenny every day at 9 a.m. Wednesdays you got Fantasy Fever following him. And then you got JJ Sports Talk, who is maybe talk sports. I don't know. Sporks are highly entertaining. They're useful tools, but probably more sports than sporks. And he's on from 2 to 3 daily, Monday through Friday. He's fantastic. Sporks again. Man, I got food on the mind, apparently. Sports Addict Jordan Allen, new show, I believe, was today. I wasn't able to catch it, but I saw some good comments in the chat room. Of course, we are Draught For Upside. We're on every Wednesday, 7 to 9. Following us at 9 o'clock tonight, we'll have the Mets 360 with Brian Jora. We'll have a Fantasy Fan Sportscast, Easy and Allen, following them at 10 o'clock, and finishing it up with Nothing But Fantasy at 11, which I believe is Andrea and Lou. So it's a jam-packed day on Wednesdays. We got all things coming at you.
It's exciting. It's fun. I love it.
Yeah, so much fun. And, you might see our show branch off and fill in little half-an-hour gaps here or there throughout the season. We've been discussing possibly doing that since we do have NBA and hockey players on the show. Maybe we can fill in some time if the schedule needs a little fluff. We'll be your fluffers, Lenny. We'll be your fluffers.
Yeah, I've kind of been thinking about doing like a little half-hour Thursday show for the NHL slate.
Yeah. I'm sure somebody would join you, not me. I'll tell you that. All right, so let's take a look at this slate. We're looking at QBs. The most expensive guy on the board is Watson at $6,700. I think this continues to be DraftKings' flaw this year. I think the quarterback pricing is too soft. But that's another topic for next year, perhaps. But I like Watson. I mean, $6,700 isn't that much for the top guy on the slate. I do expect that to be the highest scoring game of the weekend. But my favorite guy is going to be Russell Wilson at $5,700. What you got, Chris?
I like both. I like all the quarterbacks here. It just comes down to how you're projecting the games and how you think other people are going to look at it. Again, it's a short slate, so your strategy needs to be a little bit different. You need to be a little bit more cognizant and aware of what the ownership percentages are going to be and how you can take advantage of that. When we have a big 16 or 12 game slate, you don't have to worry about it as much because a highly owned guy is going to be 20-30%. All the other guys are going to be owned less than that, and they're going to kind of spread it out. But in a situation like this, I think the 3 guys that you're going to see the most ownership on is Watson, Luck, and Lamar Jackson, giving you an opportunity to really differentiate with Phillip Rivers, Russell Wilson, or Dak Prescott. And I think that you can get some significant leverage, especially if you think the majority of these games are going to go under and they're going to be low-scoring games. Finding the one gem like a Russell Wilson coming out. I mean, at $5,700, it's just you're getting that extra $1,000 off of Watson, and I think you have the same type of equity that Watson does. And I don't think that the defenses are that much different. I think the guy that has the best matchup is really Luck. So you're going to go higher price. Luck at 6,400. Anytime you have the opportunity to throw balls to receivers that might be covered by Sharice Wright, it's a positive expected value situation for you. So, I definitely think Luck is my high price guy, but I really do like Russell Wilson and Dak Prescott on the lower end there.
Adam, Mark, anything to add for quarterbacks?
No, I mean, I'm leaning towards, like Chris said, I'm kind of leaning towards contrarian on these. I think Watson and Luck are going to be way over-owned for the slate, so I'm looking down around either Prescott or even Foles. I mean, I know nobody's high in Foles, but I like him. But coming in at 5,400, that's going to allow me to load up on the skilled positions.
Yeah, my favorite guys on the slate for quarterback are Andrew Luck. I think he's got a very similar expected output to Deshaun Watson. He's going to be definitely lower owned. And then on the lower end, I do like Russell Wilson along with you, Danger, because I think they're going to have to throw it a little bit to move the ball on Dallas. I think they're going to load the box up, so I'll take Russell as my second guy quarterback for a little bit lower price there.
Yeah, and I like Seattle a lot, but I think that Chris does have a point that if things move Dallas's way, they could score in bunches, and then Seattle's going to be playing catch-up. Doesn't mean necessarily that they'll lose, but I could see Russell having to sling it around.
Well, and I mean, even if you think that the Seahawks are going to get out in front and they're going to dominate that game, there is a positive correlation between Chris Carson and Russell Wilson. So it's not the highest correlation, but it is a positive one. It's similar to that of Doug Baldwin's and Tyler Lockett. So, he's been able to produce in games a lot of times with Carson being successful as well. And what you've seen is Carson getting a lot of yards, 110, 120, maybe not scoring a lot of touchdowns because he's really not that great at the goal line. But you've seen these games where they've been dominated by their rushing attempts, but somehow every time they find the end zone, it's through the air. So, Russell isn't throwing the ball a ton. It's somewhere between 26 to 30 times, but he's efficient with those games, and he's got quite a few touchdowns for that amount. So you're betting on Russell's efficiency at that point. I don't think that Lamar Jackson's a bad play. 5,800 with a guy that if he could get that 100-yard bonus, 2 touchdowns, gives you 5 or 6 points in the air, certainly could be somebody that could really break the slate open as well. So again, what we're finding is that all of these quarterbacks, even Trubisky, has the potential to have a stealing game here and differentiate from everybody else. But at the same point, and the same token, every one of these guys could do it, and it could be one of those weeks like Week 16 where every quarterback goes crazy. So it's difficult because of the pricing.
Yeah, I've been critical of DraftKings quarterback pricing pretty much all season long. I think it's been too soft. It's too many plays, too easy. Of course, I didn't win a whole ton of money, so what do I know? Cha-Cha's asking about Luck. No, we absolutely love Luck. We do. We just we think that you don't have to play Luck, that you can play one of these guys down and free up a couple $100. We definitely are on Luck. We love Luck.
I wish I had more luck.
Right? Yeah. All right, moving on to running backs. So I think that I really like Tariq Cohen, and I don't think that I can take him out of any lineup because, as we said, Allen Robinson's hurt. The Bears' passing game isn't great, and so I think it's going to be dink and dunks to Tariq Cohen, and I think you might see him split out quite a bit during the game as well.
Yeah, he's my favorite pick of the running backs also, and it's exactly what you said. I think Trubisky that shoulder still looks hurt. I think he's going to just dink it down to Cohen. What do we got here? We got Philadelphia ranked 25th against passing running backs. So, yeah, I think that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, not 5,400. It just absolutely opens up your spots for wide receivers.
Absolutely.
Chris, who's your favorite guy?
I mean, I think you have to go with Elliott. I mean, I'd rather try to, match the crowd, even though I think he's going to be highly owned. But even if he's 50 or 60% owned, I'd rather be on that side of it than the other. Just in a situation like this, Seattle's defense has been good, but They've had some pretty easy matchups. If you look at it against Arizona, that was kind of a weird game. It was a Week 17 game, so I kind of throw it out there. But Kansas City gave up 40 points to running backs. Against the 49ers, the first time they played them, 34 points. Panthers, 52 points. That was when McCaffrey went crazy. 27 points to the Packers, 30 points to the Rams. They've shown it up. I mean, the Vikings, they gave up 19. The 49ers, the second time was 19. But this is a team that has the ability to be exploited on the ground and through the air. So I'd rather be on the right side of that. So I'm going to go with Elliott. I love Cohen, but I'm going to lock Elliott into start every lineup.
Yeah, I definitely can get behind Elliott for sure. I mean, I think that's going to be the strength of that offense. It has been all year. He's been as good as Gurley in the last half, if not better, arguably. So, yeah, I do like him. Adam, what are your running back thoughts?
Yeah, I think especially with Zeke's involvement in the passing game here, as you mentioned, 95 targets on the year. It's very hard to shy away from him. Just lock him in as your stud. There's really, other than Melvin, who he's coming off an injury with a very tough matchup on the road at Baltimore, it's hard to lock him in as your bell cow and expect the same result as you'd get from Zeke at a lower price. So I think Elliott's the way to go if you're looking for a lower-owned guy to differentiate a little bit. I actually don't mind Kenneth Dixon down at the bottom. I think if you believe that the Chargers are going to get out to a lead, which I do, that's going to put Baltimore in catch-up mode, which could give him a little more involvement in the passing game. So I don't mind him as a lower-priced, lower-owned pivot that not many will be on. But Zeke, I think, is the bell cow that you have to lock in and then look to differentiate elsewhere.
So sneaking ahead here, I happened to be looking at wide receivers, and I see that Robinson actually was a full participant in practice today for Chicago.
That's encouraging.
Yep.
I think the other guy that will go slightly lower owned, but maybe because of his past success the past couple of weeks, I think Darren Sproles presents an interesting proposition here, just because it's going to be difficult to move the ball against Chicago. I think Sproles is going to get a little more action than Adams, and could certainly be a guy that differentiates your lineup at lower ownership. Because a lot of people are going to be on Elliott and Gordon and Carson, and I'm looking at these projections that have Lamar Miller as the second highest owned running back on DraftKings, and if you've listened to us before, you know how I feel about that. That makes me
he's not any good at football.
And that makes me really happy. Lamar Miller's a hair better than Jamal Williams, who I told everybody would bust last week. Lamar Miller against Indianapolis, I don't know how you click that button, but hey, go for it.
All right. Well, we are going to have to put this on hold for a second. I'm going to go get our guest. But Adam, I don't know if are you in the chat room at all, Adam?
Yes, I am.
You see the golf question you can answer in a little bit.
Sounds good. We'll do.
If you saw that, let me let's see. Well, give me your favorite wide receiver picks as I get our guests signed in. How's that?
Sounds like a plan. Well, I guess it depends on which quarterback you play, but I'm looking at T.Y. Hilton is one of my favorites of the big names, and if Robinson's playing, he's an interesting pick. What do you think, Chris?
I really like DeAndre Carter. It doesn't matter. I like DeAndre Carter at a low price. If you're looking for one of the cheap wide receivers, I think he is an interesting guy that I'm not sure where he's going to line up, and I like him more if Kiki is playing. But last 3 games, 3, 7, and 5 targets at 3,300. He doesn't need to do a lot. They're high efficiency targets, so he's going to get those catches. Against the Eagles, he went 6 catches, 60 yards. It's 12 points. 4x is your value, so I like him there. Of course, I like Michael Gallup on the low end. Up at the top, Amari Cooper, DeAndre Hopkins, T.Y. Hilton, they're all very viable. If I had to pick my favorite, it's probably going to be Amari Cooper. And then I'll tell you a full fade on Golden Tate. Full fade.
Golden
that should be
Tate.
Yeah, honestly, in that game, I can't get away from Aguilar still. Even though I like the Bears' defense, I mean, Foles has just been dialing that dude up, and he's still only 3,800 this week. So it's hard for me to get away from that guy, even against the worst, one of the hardest matchups.
Yeah, he's definitely my cheap receiver throw-in is Aguilar. So can we do tight ends really quick before we switch to baseball?
Yeah, that's fine.
So looking at, well, Adam, did you have any opinions on wide receivers before we switch over really quick?
No, I mean, Hopkins is my stud for sure. The only guy I'd like to bring attention to a little bit is for the Bears, Taylor Gabriel. I think he's got deep play ability, and he only needs maybe a couple of big plays to break your lineups open and more than exceed value. So I like him at 4,500.
I totally agree with that. The Philadelphia secondary is trash. So I mean, if Trubisky's shoulder can hold up to some deep balls, I mean, it could definitely be a possibility.
Yeah, and he's a guy who can break one as well from a short screen pass and just take it to the house. So
yeah,
let's go to tight ends.
All right, tight ends. Well, my favorite pick on the board, and I hate myself for saying this, is Eric Ebron.
I mean, it has to be. Houston is weak underneath, and that's the spot, and he's been a target hog. So how can you not like Eric Ebron?
Houston's ranked 31st in fantasy points against tight ends. I think he's the lock and load play. He's going to be the chalk. He's going to be all of that. This might even be a week if you can manage your salary with some cheap wide receivers. You might throw in 2 tight ends. Throw Ebron and Ertz in together or something like that.
Yeah, and I actually like a couple guys at the lower end too. Blake Jarwin, I know he just came off 3 touchdowns, but he has been getting he's had 7, 7, and 9 targets in 3 of his last 4 games. So they are throwing him the ball. And I like Jordan Thomas too. We're talking about kind of a banged up wide receiver core for Houston. Indianapolis is also soft across the middle. So it could be a nice game to play Jordan Thomas in there well and save some salary at 2,700.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you guys. It's Eric Ebron, Ertz, Jarwin, 1, 2, 3. I'll throw Burton as number 4. After Ebron, it's really take your pick. I mean, Ertz is obviously in a class of his own, so you got 1A and 1B, and then everybody else. The pricing is all similar. Dallas got Goddard is a guy that's interesting that I don't think will have a lot of ownership. Not that any of these guys will, but I think he'll be even a little bit lower owned than like a Jordan Thomas, Ryan Griffin, Antonio Gates, something like that. So, if you really wanted to get cute, you could even go with like a Mo Alley Cox. I don't know. Maybe he'll score a touchdown. Seems like anytime that Ebron is the chalk, that one of the other tight ends goes ahead and scores as well. So you can play that random correlation that I've just put together in my head.
I think Cox might be getting a little bit too cute. And I want to differentiate and go to Zach Ertz because he's a better player, but the matchup just screams Eric Ebron. I don't know. I so badly want to go Ertz just heavy in all my lineups because I think he has a chance to go off. But looking at that defense for the Texans against tight ends is too much to pass up. Ebron's got to be your 1A.
Absolutely. I agree. Well, the only thing left here for us is defenses, but I think it's pretty clear. I think you can pick the Bears, you can pick for me, the Ravens. But honestly, we can make some arguments for almost any of them. So put your other players in and see what you got left and figure out where the defense fits in.
Absolutely. So we are Draught For Upside. We're brought to you by I'mABeerHound.com and the Legend Sports Network at LennyMelnick.com. And Danger, I believe we have a guest to discuss baseball for the first time on our show.
We sure do. I love it. So we're bringing in Doug Boyle, who is going to premiere with his show coming up here on Saturday at 10 a.m., The Dugout with Doug Boyle. Doug is coming to us from the Orlando, Florida area. So we got 2 Floridians on the show right now. I think that's one too many for me.
Where's the other guy from?
Chris, where are you from down there?
I live in Lakeland.
Oh, I know Lakeland well. My brother went to college there.
Fantastic.
And so did D. Gordon.
Ah, yes. Good old D. Gordon. So, Doug, you have a new show premiering on the network on Saturday. Are you excited?
Yeah, got all the things going on in the head, excitement, nervousness. Did I do something stupid by requesting to do this? All those things.
Not at all. We're having a blast, and we are complete amateurs. So if we can do it, you can do it. Ah.
They say that, as a Ben Franklin quote says that bastards coming to the world half improvised and half compromised. And that's what we're gonna do. All improvise and compromise. I mean, we're ready for this weekend, but it's kind of we were late to sign up, and so we're probably 2.5 weeks into planning, but we're looking forward to it. I have the good fortune of being knowledgeable in fantasy baseball and a number of other things around sports, and one of the guys that's in my fantasy league is actually a radio broadcaster. So I said, hey, come help me do this, because you'll be the professional guy and I'll be the other guy, and we'll get through this fine. And the truth is, I don't know. I mean, I used to be a big podcast listener. I know I've listened to Tony Cicada before. The only reason I'm here is because I know that I've listened to Lenny Melnick, right?
Right.
It seems like there's a lot of the same sort of stuff, and that's kind of what we're hoping to not be. I mean, you can't avoid most of it, but by being the Saturday show, having an hour-long thing, it's like I kind of see like I don't have to repeat everything over and over again. We're like the weekend magazine to everybody's like daily updates. We're going to be more topic-oriented and go into a little more depth about one or two things. Everything that needs to be there will be there. Don't trust me on that, but it's just that, does the world really need another person saying, these are my top 10 first basemen? I don't know.
Sure.
And the other part was, in talking with Lenny, and we've talked outside of this on a number of occasions, I think that people forget that, you play fantasy sports for fun. And so it's like I like it to be a fun situation as opposed to something where it's like you're dragging through a bunch of news notes all day long.
Absolutely. Yeah, we basically usually, unfortunately, two of us are sick right now, but normally we're drunk by the 8 o'clock mark in this show once a week. So, yeah, we definitely like to have our fun here, and we cover all the sports. I do a little baseball. I do more season long than DFS, so I'm looking forward to it. I'm trying to study. I just purchased Tanner Bell's book, The Process, and I've been reading through that, and it is really good. I don't know if you've read that, but it's fantastic.
I haven't read that. I actually am. I heard what you said earlier about how like Kenny, you turn off baseball for a while, and then you come to it. I mean, literally, I do the same thing. I mean, between some of the writings that go on and running a league and playing in a league, when the season's over, I try very hard to like watch the playoffs as just a baseball fan, and when the playoffs end, I kind of walk away for a little bit of time. I of course, like most people don't come back until football season's over. I come back right around Christmas time, a little before, because I have to, if you're running dynasty leagues, people are going to watch the last game of football and go, where the hell are my things? And,
exactly. Yeah, I actually got a little frustrated because in preparation of you coming on, I wanted to talk to you about a couple of keeper questions I had, since my fellow co-hosts here don't play much fantasy baseball, and I can't even log into it. Yahoo doesn't even have it.
Yeah. So. Yahoo they only shut down like 9 days ago. Mm-hmm. I talked to them, and they said they'll be up late February or something like that.
It's too late. I got to know.
No, sorry, late January. It was like January 23rd. Really? I got the months wrong. Yeah, what always happens with that is it always gets earlier and earlier every year. And they're probably in deep meetings deciding what to do about Shohei Ohtani. Because they didn't do anything last year about it. I actually think what they did was fine, but everybody else is so down on them over it that they're probably trying to figure something out. And the funny thing is, it won't matter this year because Ohtani won't throw a pitch.
Right. Most likely not. Yeah.
So they could punt it for another year, and no one would really care.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
So danger. The good news is that I actually can get into my dynasty team because I don't play on Yahoo. And I'm in the second year of some rebuilds here. I do got to make some decisions on a couple of guys. So I don't know if you had a question or if I can ask that, or I can wait till later.
If you ask a question, that's fine. I'll do my best to answer it. Normally, when somebody asks you a question, I'm going to ask you a few more questions because well, everybody's situation is just a little bit different, even though some of the universals are universal. And actually, one of the things on my show that just tried to be a little bit different is I set up a phone-in line. I mean, it's not all live, like you can call in and talk to us, but you call in. It's a tape recording. A person can dial 407-564-6487, and then leave a question, and we'll pull the question up and answer it there. I mean, we're cheating a little bit. I'll be able to know the question beforehand because nobody knows all 1,000 players out there except for maybe Tony Sakata, right? But if you bring up somebody that I'm not 100% up on, I can do a quick research beforehand, and we'll answer any kind of question you have on that line. But go ahead and ask me a question now.
Sure. Well, this is the second year of a rebuild, so I've got a lot of prospects on my team. Finished dead last year, which was expected, as I sold off a lot of assets and brought back a lot of prospects. But it is a salary cap league, and I don't have the salaries in front of me. But thinking that Adam Eaton's probably like a $15 salary per point.
In my dynasty league, I have a $15 Adam Eaton also. And that's right at the crossroads of things. I mean, it depends on a lot of stuff. How deep is your league? Is it like 12, 15, 16, 20?
It's only 10 teams. It's only 10 teams.
I mean, at 10 teams, I bet you any money that if you really want Adam Eaton, you could go to the draft with $15 and get him for less than that.
Okay.
I mean, you might have to pay 12 or 13, and maybe somebody goes nuts and spends 18 or 19. But is it a 260 cap?
I think it's a little bit different than that. We have about 25 roster spots. So our draft is only 10. Basically we have a rookie draft. I have 2 spots in that. Obviously I have the first overall pick, so I'm excited about that. But too bad it wasn't last year. Now, what happens is there'll be 10 nominated players. Those will be drafted, and then the rest are going to be blind bidded. So if I drop Eaton, he's probably not going to be somebody that's going to come up in terms of being offered up on the top 10 picks. But you think I could probably get him for a lot cheaper than that 15 if I drop him.
I mean, at 15, you're only 15 away from 0. So if you really wanted him, you probably go 9 or 8 and get him. People tend to think in terms of round numbers. Like they always said, like they'd quit smoking when pack cigarettes got to $5. So somebody might say 10. If you save yourself $5 there. What happens in a tie in the blind bid?
I'm not sure. I think I actually would hold the tiebreaker just due to my poor finish last year.
Well, then $10 would definitely get him. You might get him cheaper. I did a. Let's see. I actually did 2 practice mock drafts, and he went in single digits both times. And I just think there's so many other guys out there, and with I think that the perception of the Nationals is they're not the run scoring team that they once were with the loss of Murphy and probably Harper. And the guy is a really good leadoff hitter, has a lot of great baseball skills, but can't stay healthy. I don't think that he's going to have that kind of weight. I'm probably going to throw back. I'm going to throw back Eaton at 15 in my league, but I also have the fact that I have a handful. Last year I lost in the championship game. I have a handful of expensive good players that I'm trying to figure out a way to keep. So I'd rather save $14 and go into the year with a Renato Nunez in the outfield or something strange like that.
All right, well, I have a question for you. So it is not a budgeted league. This one is just a keeper league, but it's a snake draft. I tried to go over and over again, didn't even go to auction. They're just not interested. But I do have the luxury of having both Soto and Vlad Jr. on my team. I can only keep one in the 21st round.
That's probably Soto and Vlad Jr.
Correct.
I mean, I would say go with your heart, but the real truth of the matter is that Soto has a job. Vlad Jr. doesn't have one yet. You're going to get a full season out of Soto. You're probably going to get 5 months out of Vlad, but you're not going to get the full season. Mm-hmm. Based on what Soto did last year, as much as people think that Vlad's the second coming, I can't imagine him outperforming him in 5 months.
Sure. Well, I will get to. I mean, it's a 3-round penalty, so even if either one, I get to keep the next year in the 18, the next year in 15. As the problem is they're both the same round, and we don't have they won't let you keep them for another penalty. you get the round, you get the round.
Well, so you're saying the part that I really didn't discuss was, do I think that Vlad will be worthwhile 5 years from now versus Soto? I really don't ever. I think that a lot of people play Dynasty. I mean, this is the cold hard truth about fantasy baseball is that 80% of the people never win, right? And so those guys get really hung up on drafts because that's the one day when they're competing.
Mm-hmm.
And the beauty of the Dynasty League is that they can feel like they're doing something because they're always like rebuilding, and they'll rebuild in year 1, they'll rebuild in year 2, and they'll keep doing it for 10 years. I really block out 5 years and later in my head.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I only think usually 2 years ahead, so I just look at that, and because it is a deep league, we've got lots of bench space, and the only reason why I can't keep them both is because they both have the same round value, and so you just can't keep them both. That's just the sad rule of the league.
They wouldn't let you move up penalty or
20th
something?
round. Yeah, no, I've discussed that in years past, and the commissioner just doesn't want to keep track of that much. That's all it comes down to, which is sad. But it's a thoroughly enjoyable, highly competitive league with a great guys. We've been playing, gosh, I don't know, just shy of 10 years. So it's very fun, and so I try not to dabble because most of them are football guys, and this is just their, what they do in the spare time. But it is very competitive and very entertaining, and so I try not to push my boundaries too much.
That's kind of like how I play football. I'm in a football league basically because it's made up of a 17-year-old. It's made up of 80% out of a 17-year-old baseball league that I do play in. So it's kind of like part of the camaraderie thing. I don't care as much as most. Though I did try. I did make the playoffs for what it's worth.
Fantastic. Yeah, this league, I was trying to go back and look and see how long it's been playing, but I know it's been at least 8 years, maybe 9. It could possibly be 10. I can't remember. I won the first 3 years in a row and haven't won since. So I gotta get back on that horse this year.
Man, at least you won something,
right?
Have you ever seen the 30 for 30 about the origins of rotisserie baseball?
No, but I thought Lenny made that up. So
no, it was the guy who invented the thing at the very end, and this will make you cry. I mean, it'll make you cry like when Brian Piccolo dies, in Brian's song. The guy who invented the game never won one. He's been playing for 35 years. At the end, he walks away sadness. You got a couple victories under your belt. Take them.
Yeah, I like it. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Doug. I can't wait to listen to your show. I unfortunately won't be able to listen to it live, but I will be listening to the replay.
We're hoping to make sure that it's podcast rewatch worthy as opposed to just in the moment. But like you said earlier to everyone else, like if you're missing out on something if you're not. You can listen to this show. They can listen to your show. You can listen to my show. But if you're in the chat room, there's just so much more going on.
Oh, it's so much fun.
You're losing half of the things. But
we got Lenny and Cha-Cha and Tony bickering back and forth. Highly entertaining.
Exactly. So I thank you for letting me come on for a few minutes.
No, I appreciate it. We'll have you back again because I guess I didn't know Chris played baseball. I don't know about Adam. I know Mark doesn't. So I'll need some help carrying baseball segments. So maybe we'll have you on a little bit more, huh?
All right. I'm around.
I appreciate it, Doug. Can't wait to hear you on Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern on the Legend Sport Network. You'll find us on LennyMelnickFantasySports.com. Join us in the chat room for any of these shows. The schedule's at the bottom of the chat room page. You just can't miss out. We're having too much fun.
Great. See you later.
Appreciate it, Doug. All right. Fantastic. All right. Well, we are back at it with our topics here. We are moving on to PGA. Adam White's going to take over. I got to step away from the mic for a few minutes. So, Mark, Chris, Adam, have at it for a few. I'll catch you in a second.
Sounds good. So, Adam, how's this first tournament looking?
Well, for being honest, I'm never as big of a fan of limited field events as I am for full field, but I don't really care. I'm excited the season's starting up. I'm fired up that it's finally here because it feels like it's been a very, very long wait. So excited to start breaking it down.
The one interesting thing about this one is it's a no cut. So you don't have to worry about picking those players that won't make the cut, So I think it adds a little kind of a twist to it, but I know it's a limited field, so that's probably why. Is there any advantage to a no cut versus a cut?
I don't think there's any more advantage. I think it changes your strategy. You have to go more birdie makers, more aggressive players, because you know for sure you're getting 4 rounds out of that guy. Normally you want to go for 6 out of 6 through the cut line to give you the highest upside. But the strategy changes weeks like this where, this was an invitation-only event, so guys that won events last year get invited to this tournament. So you're looking for guys who can really score. A guy that finishes 18th to 20th that makes a ton of birdies might even finish borderline top 10 because there's going to be a lot of birdies made this week. So you have to factor in both the no-cut event and the strategy you want to go after, which in this week is definitely the guys who can score, who can make a ton of birdies.
All right. So
we had a chat question if you want to go with that.
Yeah, go for it. What do we got?
Yeah, you can find some of the kind of the pick-by-pick breakdowns in the article that we posted on the Draught For Upside website. But Tony in the chat room posted Koepka, Rahm, Keegan Bradley, Horschel, Poulter, and DeChambeau for his 6. If we're looking for some guidance there, I like the guys up top. This week is more of a crapshoot than any other because you have no recent data to go off of. They've been on like a 4-week hiatus since the last official event in the fall swing. So, you're basically going on course fit and course history more so than anything else. I like Koepka and Rahm up top. I think they're both going overlooked for being kind of the top price studs that actually fit the course very well. Keegan, I don't mind. Horschel, Poulter, and DeChambeau, I'm not quite as fond of. I love DeChambeau's long-term prospects this year. He doesn't usually putt as well on slower greens. He putts a lot better typically on faster bent greens. These are very slow POA, so I would say if you're getting off of DeChambeau, a guy that I like to pivot to in that range is actually Xander Schauffele at $400 less. He played the course last year. It helps to have played it before. He's got a very good game for this course, and I actually like him to pop this week. For some reason, people tend to not play him as much as they should because he's a very, very good player. And him being down around the 11th or 12th price guy, I think is a very good value.
Well, hey, and Adam, and I've pulled some ownership projections that I found off of Twitter. John Rahm actually is projected to be the highest owned guy on DK, above Dustin Johnson. Just so I wanted to throw that out there. Schauffele looks at like he's coming in at 16%. Rahm is at 46.9.
Yeah, 46.9. That would be higher than anticipated. But
so I mean, given that, do you still like him, or do you think that he's a guy that you can? I mean, if you're looking at GPPs, if he's going to be 46, do you think he fails more than half the time?
I mean, in golf, that answer is almost always yes, in my opinion. If you're looking for a pivot there, I would go straight down to Rory at $200 less.
And Rory comes in at 18%, just to give you an idea.
Is this based on Fanshare Sports, or what's the reference for this?
This was posted on Awesemo's Twitter earlier today.
Yeah, that's a good source then. I think if Rahm's going to be that highly owned, as much as I would like to play him, I'm going to be pivoting to Rory or just above Rahm to Koepka. I just think the way the pricing shakes out this week, if you start going to like DJ up top, who's clearly the best play from an expected value perspective, you're going to have to start looking at differentiating with ownership. If Rahm's 50% or close to it, I mean, in golf, you always pivot to the guys that are going to be lower owned because the expected outcome for Rory is not much different than Rahm. So to answer your question, I would definitely pivot down to Rory from Rahm or up to Koepka, depending on what you like and how much money you have to work with.
What about Kevin Na? He's lock button 100% of all lineups, right?
Didn't you ask about Kevin Na before?
Yeah, of course, dude. Best player in the sport, right?
According to what exactly?
I mean, he got invited to this tournament, didn't he? I mean, this is the best guy.
He got invited because he won an event last year. He broke a big drought, as did many guys who were in this field. Charles Howell was just above him. He broke a long drought. Ian Poulter broke a long winless drought on the PGA Tour anyway. I like those guys a little bit better down in that price range, but I think if you're going way down below 7K, the guys that I like are either Piercy, There's not a whole lot of guys I love below 7K, to be honest with you.
I'll tell you, the guy that comes in the highest ownership down there is Kevin Tway. Looking at like a 25% ownership. Two of the guys that I was looking at, not on DraftKings, but on FanDuel, I was looking at Woodland, and then also Leishman comes up huge in the model that I have.
Yep.
If I remember correctly, last year he did really well here the first 2 rounds. Kind of faded the last 2. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, he did very well.
Did the opposite.
Yeah, after the first 2 rounds, I think Leishman may have actually been leading and then fell off a little bit on Saturday. Kind of treaded water on Sunday, but he's actually one of the guys that I wrote up in the article. It's going to be on Draught For Upside. Leishman I love in the mid-price range. I think he's got the upside to win this event without too much trouble.
No, it's because of the style of the course, right? I mean, this is he grew up in Australia, and if I'm wrong on any of this, go ahead and correct me. But
Sure.
I believe I remember he grew up in Australia, and this course is very similar to the courses that he grew up playing. Is that correct? And so that's kind of why the familiarity with this style of course with him is why he tends to be successful in these type of things.
Yeah, Leishman's a guy that I tend to like to target on coastal courses where you can have a lot of wind exposure. Australian guys tend to be very, very good wind players because that's what they grew up playing in. So you become good in the course conditions that you play in. And Leishman's one of those guys for sure. It's supposed to be very windy for at least the first couple days of this event. So take that for what it's worth. But Leishman's a guy who's known as a very good wind player, and the stats have bared that out over the years. So he's a guy I'm definitely targeting. Woodland, I don't mind either. There's 5 par 5s on this golf course. Woodland's one of the longer guys out there. He'll have some irons into par 5s on this course, so he could definitely be a guy who scores very, very well this week. I actually have him in a couple lineups this week on DraftKings.
So, and forgive me, I haven't looked at the article, and I'm pulling it up now, but what are, like, if I'm looking at 2 kind of indicators, either like putts per round, greens hit, driving distance. I mean, what are going to be the leading indicators on this particular course that I'm looking at to try and get any type of success out of my guys when I'm trying to break down a tie break between 2 or something along those lines?
Yeah, I think putting is such a stat that is it's got so much variance week to week that it's hard to predict. One thing I like to look at is overall success putting on certain green types, because your POA annual is going to have a lot different type of roll than like a bent grass green, which tends to be quicker and not as bumpy. So certain guys putt well on certain types of greens, but it's still a very variant stat. The one I'm looking at this week, driving distance is always a big one no matter what course you're playing. But this week I actually like approaches in that 100 to 125 range, because there's going to be a lot of wedges into these greens, whether it be the par 5s or the par 4s that are going to play a little shorter than the scorecard indicates because the fairways are so firm. And there's a lot of slope out there. So off your tee shots, the ball might roll an extra 20, 30 yards more so than other events they'll play later this year. So there's going to be a lot of shots in that approach range from 100 to 125. So that's one stat I'll be targeting. Place that I go for those stats typically is fantasynational.com. So if you want to look at very specific stats over a very specific time frame as far as number of rounds played, that's a great place to go for that. But this week, approaches from 100 to 125 yards specifically is the number one stat I'm looking at, followed closely as always by driving distance.
All right, so now DFS strategy wise for PGA, is this like all DFS sports? Do you play a different lineup for cash versus GPPs?
I do, as much as I play DFS golf, which is quite a bit. I just don't think that DFS golf is as conducive for cash games as other sports are. I just think it's too unpredictable. There's too much variance. Guys from week to week, you can have all the predictors heading in, and granted, you can have that in football too. But I think like baseball, basketball are sports that are really conducive to cash games because you got so many stats that are really great indicators of success. So in general, I like playing tournaments more, just because there's a higher chance, in my opinion, that a player who's going to be much lower owned actually goes off and exceeds the outcome, the output of a guy who's right in that same price range, who's being talked up more for, it might be good reasons why a guy's being talked up, but in a lot of cases, those guys kind of fall flat. And then your guys who are priced right around them, like we just talked about with Rahm and Rory. Seeing what we just saw with the ownership there, I'm going straight to Rory because I don't think Rahm has that much better of an expected output. And Rory's sitting right there and could easily lap John Rahm this week and put you ahead of the field in tournaments. So I like tournaments a lot better on golf than I do in any other sport, to be honest with you. I just think cash games, golf is too unpredictable to have a long-term expected, profitability in cash games in golf.
Sure.
So I've got some props here. If we can go through a couple of these props and maybe try and win some money here.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So this is something that if you guys need me to send you an invite to, it's a website called Monkey Knife Fight, and it gives you kind of different player props and things that you can do for different sports. And right now they do have they sound like an affiliate here, but I'm not. They do have a 100% match bonus, and it's instant. It's not a drip, so it's pretty cool. So one of the ones they have for the first round is got to pick both of these guys correctly and then win 2.14 your buy-in. And you can do 2, 5, 10, 20, whatever. So Dustin Johnson, over under 67.5 strokes.
In round one?
Yeah, in round one.
I would actually go over.
Okay. And then Andrew Landry, over under 11.5 pars.
Wow, that's actually an interesting prop. I'm not sure how much of a par maker he tends to be. DJ, the course is a par 73 for starters. So on DJ, anytime you can bet on a guy not shooting better than 5 under, I'm going to take that unless it's an extremely easy course. It's going to be windy tomorrow. I would take under 11.5 pars for Landry, just because this is a course where you tend to make a lot of birdies. Although he is he's a second-time player. Sorry, he's a first-time player on this course, and normally those guys play a little more conservatively in their first round. I would actually switch that and go to over. I would go over 11.5 pars tomorrow for Landry.
Okay. Let's see. So we're going to go over that in for $2. Didn't sound very confident there.
No, not. I didn't mean to switch it up there, but being a first-time guy at this event, usually the winner is somewhere between 22 to 30 under par, which Spieth hit a couple years ago. But in the first round for a first-time player, a lot of these guys play pretty conservatively. It's going to be windy as well, so he's going to have to play away from some pins and not be as aggressive. I would definitely go over on second thought with that one for the review.
All right, so this is going to be a little interesting one here. This is a high payout. It's an 8X. I got to pick 4 out of 4 correctly here. So it's Bryson versus Brooks. Brooks is getting 0.5. It's who has more birdies, round one.
All right, I made it back. Can you repeat everything?
Yeah, we're doing some player props right now on Monkey Knife Fight.
Oh, yeah, I've been seeing that advertised, but I haven't checked it out yet.
Yeah.
That was pretty intriguing. I would lean towards Bryson in that one.
Okay, so then pars, we've got Andrew Landry versus Charles Howell. Howell getting the 0.5 bump.
I would still take Charles Howell on that one. He tends to be a par maker.
Okay, total strokes, Dustin Johnson versus Rory. Johnson gets the plus 0.5, so he's the favorite.
I would still have to go DJ on that one.
Okay, and then the last one is birdies. Justin Thomas versus Gary Woodland. Woodland's getting the 0.5 bump. I'm
going to take Justin Thomas against just about anybody in birdies made for a round, so we'll go JT, even given the half stroke.
A nice, exciting $2 pays 16 on that. So
All right, I expect a small cut if you win that.
Absolutely.
By that I mean a beer.
I mean, I can send you a link too. You get free like $10. So just for signing. All right, let's do one more. Let's do okay. So this is the top one. This is the worst odds. It's a 5 of 5, and here we go. So total strokes: Dustin Johnson plus 0.5 versus Brooks Koepka.
Koepka, man, Koepka. Defending champ DJ. I got to go DJ in that one.
All right, so we got birdies. Bryson versus Rory. Rory with the plus 0.5.
I would actually take Rory. I think at worst he matches what Bryson does tomorrow. He tends to be a birdie maker. 5 par 5s. Give me Rory all day.
All right, so we've already answered the pars and the birdies because they're the same as the other one, and we also have a pars. Poulter versus Andrew Putnam. Andrew Putnam getting the plus 0.5.
Yeah, I'll go with Putnam just because who the hell knows where Poulter's game is right now. He's probably been partying for the last 3 months after that Ryder Cup victory. So I'll go with Putnam as a first-time guy as well.
$2 pays $34 for that one. So.
Oh my.
Yeah, they have cool stuff. They have it for all the sports. They have that. They have a couple different game modes. Sometimes you hit 2 out of 3 or similar different things to that, like over under 2 out of 3, stuff like that. So the odds are obviously different depending on how many that you need to hit to win.
Interesting. That sounds very much worth checking out. I do love the player props.
Yeah, I'll throw a link in here.
So you're listening to Draught For Upside, sponsored by I'mABeerHound.com, and we're currently chatting with Adam White on PGA DFS for the Century Tournament Champions. So I think you touched on it a little bit earlier, Adam, but who is your bargain play of the week?
I guess that depends on how far down you have to go to be considered a bargain play of the week. Are you saying like the best value as compared to his price, or something below like 7,500?
Yeah, I'm thinking more, something below 7,500 so you can get one of the top players in.
Below 75, one of the top guys. I've seen one of the very popular guys this week. Looks to be Snedeker as far as who's being talked up and who people are expecting to play well. If you're looking for a guy with upside to potentially win, he would be in that conversation. If I'm going to differentiate, I would have to go. I would probably lean towards Keegan Bradley, but just above that, I like Aaron Wise right at 75. He's kind of at the cutoff. Really good driver of the golf ball, pretty good wedge player down in the lower end there. Those two guys are probably the ones I'd mention. I don't like anybody honestly at 7,000 or below. The only guy that I like remotely is Scott Piercy. Really good ball striker, great in the wind. If he can get his putter going a little bit, Piercy's a guy I can get on board with at 6,700. He was written up in the article, and I think if he comes out, he's normally a very bad putter. He's a guy that's tough to roster because you watch him on the putting green, you're like not even confident he's going to make a 3-footer. But that being said, if he has a good putting week, and again, it's a stat that's variant from week to week. I do like Piercy of those lower end guys to potentially top 5 for you. Tough to see any of them winning because historically this event tends to go towards the studs, but for a guy who might top 5 at very low ownership and also low price, I think Piercy's my number 1 guy down there.
Hey, we haven't really talked about him. It looks like his ownership percentage is pretty low amongst the top guys. Him and Rory are about the same. What about Jason Day?
Jason Day's a tough guy for me to get on board with. Last year, he had a pretty good season. He won twice, but he really rides a very, very hot putter. And I mean, the stats have shown he's one of the better putters on tour year after year. That being said, it's not the kind of guy that I like to target. I like following guys who have very elite ball striking numbers, especially up in that top, let's see, 1, 2, 3. He's the sixth price guy of the guys who are actually playing this week. I don't know why Rose and Tiger are even on there for pricing. So Day's a hard guy for me because he's not particularly great with his wedges in that approach range we were talking about, which they're going to have a lot of at this course. He's really going to have to rely on a hot putter like he did last year to win those two events in order to finish where he needs to pay off his $9,000 salary this week. So he's not a guy that I love. I think he's going to be low owned for good reason. I would much rather pivot to a couple guys either just below him or just above him. I just think he's kind of in that dead zone.
Okay, I got another one for you then. We were talking. You talked about earlier the guys that are driving the ball. The guy that I think has the highest driving distance long term here is Cameron Champ, and he looks like he has some good driving accuracy, low putts per round. What do you think about him and his chances?
I don't mind Cam Champ at all. I think he's going to have a very good year. He just won for the first time in the fall swing season. He's going to be a rookie officially on tour in the 2018-2019 season, and he absolutely bombs the ball. He's going to be the longest guy on tour, probably for years to come. I mean, he's that long. So on a course where you've got 5 par 5s, he can easily make birdies in bunches. My only concern with him is he hasn't played this course before, and that has shown to be a tough hill to climb for first timers at this event. So, he might go out there and have a blast. He's not married yet. He's young. He's smart, so he's not married yet, and he might have all the time he needs to put into his game and just focus on learning that course on the fly. So if he does do well this week, I would see him being the guy who pushes on the weekend by shooting 2 low rounds on like Saturday, Sunday. He's not one of the guys I'm heavily targeting because his name is kind of making him higher owned than he probably should be at this point in time. But at the same time, I would not be surprised at all if he was in the top 5 at the end of the week, given his distance and how easy it is for him to make birdies in bunches.
Well, I'll tell you, he's coming in, he's clocking in at about 17% with Patrick Reed above him at 20 and Gary Woodland right below him at 23.5. Casey and Watson both in that 17 range. Shuffley and Molinari at 16 and 14. So pretty average ownership based on the pricing amongst those guys.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I don't like about these weeks where you have a condensed field with no cut is the ownership is so spread out. You really have a hard time gaining leverage. So, it's one of those weeks where I might look to honestly target guys based, if I like them at all, based just on ownership alone. What's Leishman's projected ownership right now?
30. So he's going to be the 5th highest owned. It basically goes Rahm, Johnson, Bryson, Justin, Leishman.
Okay. Yeah, honestly, I'm probably going to go tonight and pick out some guys who are projected to be lower owned on Fanshare Sports and target the guys that I like in that lower ownership range because you have no data to go on for the last month. It's going to be a birdie fest, and you have guys that are going to surprise this week, no doubt. There's going to be 2 or 3 guys in the top 6 or 7 DraftKings scoring that are very low owned. So I'm going to go target some guys that are going to be low on this week and roll from there.
So let me ask you, are you putting, how many lineups do you usually do when you do the golf?
I used to kind of go more crazy with it, and I wouldn't max out the 150, but I would do, typically 18 to 22 lineups, depending on how many guys I wanted in my player pool. I've gotten more down to what I've found to be a more successful strategy is getting your player pool down to, in full field events, more like 12 to 15 guys, really focusing in on who you want to have higher ownership leverage on against the field. This week, I would probably have more like 8 to 10 guys, to be honest with you, really get it condensed so that if your guys hit and they happen to be a little bit lower owned and they finish higher than expected, they really vault you up the leaderboard. So I really try and be contrarian in golf more than any other sport because it's so up and down and very unpredictable. I almost always fade the absolute like top 2 or 3 chalk guys each week, just because they historically just fail week after week, because golf is so tough to predict. So this week I'll probably have a more condensed player pool, but I'm normally playing more like probably 25 to 30 total lineups in those big field GPPs. But I also like playing more of the 3 max entry and 5 max entry events.
Sure.
I think those are a really good way to kind of break your way into PGA DFS, have a good sweat, and not really give away equity based on not having the amount of lineups the guys do in the 150.
Sure, and I think I preach it all the time. I think contest selection is the biggest thing. When you get into those larger field tournaments, those weird things can really happen, and they always do, and they always will. When you put together the most optimal lineup, very, very rarely will they, in any sport, will that be a lineup that wins out of 50, 60, 70,000 people. If you can go find tournaments, even if they're a little bit higher entry, and I know that sometimes difficult for people to do in sports that they're not as familiar with, but your return is just going to be so much better if you have the right tools in front of you. Even if you don't necessarily know what you're doing, you're only competing against 200, 300 people. Some of those leverage spots aren't going to be as necessary. The randomness of some of these guys that'll find their way into 150 lineups times 100 people doing that is going to be far less. So just find the smaller fields and go in those, and I think you'll be more profitable. You'll have more fun, and maybe you're not going to retire off of the tournament, but you can use those profits to kind of fund the dreams of retirement off of Millie Makers and whatnot.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And the PGA on DraftKings, they do a nice job of giving a good selection of like quarter arcade games. So if you're a guy who typically plays, or a gal who typically plays a lot of lineups in a given sport, just to kind of cut your teeth and get a feel for it, play the quarter arcade, play those lineups in something where you're not giving away too much money and too much equity. Kind of find your stride, and then work your way up to the $3 or $5 max entries, because you can give away a lot of money in a hurry if you're putting 150 lineups in without knowing what you're doing.
Well, and I mean, for example, on FanDuel, a $10 single entry, 176 people, first place pays $250, pays the top 33.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, and that's something I want to get more involved in this year, is playing more on FanDuel. I tend to play on DraftKings probably like 80% of my bankroll each week on DraftKings, and the rest on Fantasy Draft, which is a really user-friendly site. It's a different format too than DraftKings or FanDuel, so I love differentiating, because it almost forces you to play some different guys just based on the difference in pricing from site to site. So I'll get more into FanDuel this year for sure.
Yeah, I definitely think FanDuel across all sports actually has more single entry and low entry tournaments. Sometimes they'll have a $25, and I think they even have it for the golf, but they also have it for football. It's like $25, 50 people or 75 people, and first place pulls $400. You get some of those on DraftKings, but you don't get them with the same frequency. They fill on FanDuel, they reopen another one. So I think it's a little bit more friendly to people that don't want to compete in some of those. Certainly they have the bigger ones, but I just think they have a wider supply of smaller games and lower entry fields.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's so easy to get caught up and like look at the big payout at the very top of those large like 6-figure GPP fields, but the reality is there's a very, very low likelihood that you're going to ever hit that payout. So play the higher percentage contest, play the contest you have a better chance of winning, and have less lineups to compete with, and you'll have more fun with it. And that's why we're doing this, right? We're all trying to have fun playing fantasy sports. So if you're losing week after week, you're not going to have fun.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm looking at the chat. I mean, here's kind of like my philosophy and strategy on it. Cash isn't always that much fun. I mean, I think cash in a lot of sports ends up being not that much different than, especially in bigger fields or bigger days, 16 teams, 12 teams, whatever the sport is. So finding those smaller tournaments to kind of be the profit bearers for you, if you're going to go with cash too, that's fine. And then, you're going to throw in a couple of those $9, in FanDuel, it's usually like $10, or today it was $15 for the 30K $100,000 to first tournament for the NBA. But you want to find those $12, those $15, those $25, less than 300 to 400 people, because that's where you're going to win most of your money.
That's where I lose all my money. It's just playing DFS in general.
Yeah.
Nah, well, that was awesome content. I appreciate that, guys. That was a good back and forth, and I've always enjoyed watching PGA and playing some seasonal fantasy, but really looking forward to cracking into some DFS. In the chat room, I did post a link to a quick PGAtour.com fantasy league I started. If you have any issues getting in there, let me know, but it should ask you for a password. The password is Adam White, all lowercase. And hopefully we can get a few people in and play a little seasonal as well.
We also have a DraftKings league that we post contests for NBA, NFL, PGA, NHL. I can post a link back in, but it's Draught For Upside on DK. We have a PGA league up there right now.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, I appreciate everybody here. I appreciate Doug coming on as our guest, and Lenny for giving us all a shot on this, and really enjoying our time here at LennyMelnickFantasySports.com, and soon to be the live Legend Sports Network, which will be very exciting. Hopefully Tony calls in one of these days and chuckles with us, not just in the chat room. And anybody's welcome. Cha-cha, all you guys. You just got to get on Skype and let us know, and we'll add you in. We always like having a party. The more drinking, the better, in my opinion. So that's awesome. So, anybody watch that Netflix Black Mirror Choose Your Own Adventure?
Not yet. I just finished Bird Box.
How was Bird Box? I've been hearing a lot about that.
Polarizing, I hear.
Yeah, it's okay. It's enjoyable. You should watch it. Coming after A Quiet Place, it just almost feels like the blind version of A Quiet Place.
But I thought it was a better movie than The Quiet Place, though.
Yeah, they're about equal in my opinion. It's good. I think it's above average. People should watch it, but I don't think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, like people have been talking about.
Yeah, I haven't watched either and have no interest, but I am going to get on this Black Mirror. I watched all 4 seasons of that. I really enjoyed it. So I noticed my kid had a Choose Your Own Adventure show up on the TV the other day. First time I've seen that. That's a neat trend. That's be interesting to see where that goes.
That means I have to pay attention. I can't be setting lineups while I'm watching TV.
All right. I like it. Well, we got to get out of here because we got to make room for Mets 360 with Brian Jora coming up here at the top of the hour. And you guys have been great. I love y'all. Hopefully I'm in the beer drinking mood next week.
Yeah. I hope you are too.
Yeah. Well, I'll be at the Michigan Brewers Guild Winter Trade Show and Conference. Broadcasting from a laptop somewhere in a hotel room. So it should be very entertaining.
And since it's the Brewers Guild Conference, there's plenty of beer to be had.
Oh, unbelievable. Yeah. If I can get away from the left, right, center table that breaks out in the hospitality room every year, and then I'll be on. If not, maybe I won't see you guys till the week after next.
All right. Well, we're Draught For Upside. We're on the legendsportsnetwork.com Wednesdays 7 to 9, and we're sponsored by I'mABeerHound.com. Happy New Year, and we will see you next week.
Thanks, guys. See you.